Basketball Soapbox. I'm your host, Daniel Daly. And in this episode, I'll be going over the Boston Celtics offseason moves. I feel like they addressed some needs that they definitely needed to address. Playmaking and shooting. Some areas for concern that we saw in the NBA Finals there with turnovers and the shooting there. And especially bench production. I feel like those are three areas that the Celtics needed to address in this offseason. I feel like with these moves, they did that. Let's get into it. The first major move that we saw was Malcolm Brogdon from the Indiana Pacers being traded to the Boston Celtics. Celtics send out Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, Malik Fitz, Juwan Morgan, Nick Stauskas in a 2023 first-round pick. And in those moves, you get a guy that's going to be able to play 18 to 30 minutes a night, whereas those guys that got traded to Indiana really weren't in the rotation towards the end of the season in the playoffs or in the finals. So to get this guy who's is a playmaker, a guy who can knock down shots, a guy who can create his own shot and create for others in Malcolm Brogdon, I feel like that's huge for the Boston Celtics and just provides flexibility with ball handling duties and in the guard rotation. Our main guards are going to be Brogdon, Smart, and Pritchard. I think they're going to be using Brogdon as a six-man off the bench, and I feel like that's a good spot for him. Still trusting Marcus Smart to make the right moves, but in terms of when you need a different level of playmaking and consistency, especially off the bench, which just seemed to falter in the NBA Finals, that just the bench was a glaring problem for the Boston Celtics, especially handling the ball. Jayson Tatum led the playoffs in turnovers last year. Jaylen Brown, I believe they had 20. They were up and close to all of them were around 20 turnovers in the NBA Finals, and that's just crazy. That's nearly 60 turnovers between the three of them, Smart, Brown, and Tatum. So to get another guy whose assist-turnover ratio is pretty low, a guy who's a good playmaker and has a high basketball IQ, and is going to come in and not try to shake the roster or anything like that, shake the game plan or anything like that. He's going to be there to create for these guys here. And I feel like this guy, Malcolm Brogdon, he's part of the 50-40-90 club while he was in Milwaukee before going to Indiana. He's been able to keep his shooting up a little bit there. Last year, he stumbled a bit. Just the uncertainty there in Indiana kind of probably contributed to that. They traded Sabonis to the Kings. Miles Turner was always on the trading block. TJ Warren was out. Thanks, Fly. But yeah, Malcolm Brogdon, I feel like this is a big one for the Boston Celtics. He's a big guard, so you don't lose anything defensively, especially when the Celtics switch. I feel like that's a big plus. You got a guy that can come in and knock down shots from the perimeter, run the offense in the second unit or the primary unit, and you're not going to lose anything, especially with this guy who's been steady player. He's been a rookie of the year, whatever the case may be, when you want to argue against Joel Embiid or not. There's been injury concerns. He's only played north of 70 games since his rookie season once. He's had an Achilles injury last year, so he's probably just coming off of that and probably trying to get back into the role of things. A rival GM said, an anonymous GM actually, was bringing up his knee histories in college and said he has terrible legs. He has issues with coaches. Well, he's not. I don't think that's going to be an issue here with Ime Udoka at the helm, Brad Stevens as GM, and all these guys in the locker room who were just so close to winning the NBA Finals. So Malcolm Brogdon, I don't think is going to be a headache coming into here and have any issues there, and especially with the injury concerns. He's going to be playing 18 to 30 minutes a night. He's not going to be called upon to do that every night, but it just provides flexibility in that backcourt for the Celtics there with Smart, Pritchard, and Malcolm Brogdon. You can play Smart and Brogdon together. I think they're going to bring Malcolm Brogdon off the bench in a six-man role, kind of similar to what Marcus Smart has been over the past couple of years, but just a little bit more of a steady shooter, a little bit more of a steady playmaker off the bench there. And you can run him with the first unit, you can run him with the second unit, you can play him with the first unit. And I think that's important to have the flexibility there. Maybe some nights Marcus Smart's not shooting the ball well, you can get Malcolm Brogdon in there, who has been a known shooter, a known playmaker. If Marcus Smart has a high turnovers, if Jaylen Brown's having trouble with the ball, Jayson Tatum, you can play different lineup. You can plug in Brogdon and not lose much size there. In the switching defense with the Celtics, I don't think you lose anything there, which is a major plus. Major plus. And I think Malcolm Brogdon is a huge win for the Boston Celtics. I think he's going to pay dividends here. A guy that doesn't need the ball, similar to Derek White, but just a better shooter, better playmaker. In terms of that, and you got Derek White in that guard rotation as well. You can play those two together and not lose much defensively. It's just what Malcolm Brogdon is going to be able to do on the offensive end. I think that's going to pay huge dividends for the Boston Celtics. Another move that the Celtics made was adding Danilo Gallinari, and now this guy has been a starter in Denver, a starter in New York, been to Houston, no, not Houston, the Clippers, and played well there. He's had some injuries there with his legs and stuff like that. He's been hovering around 60 games the past 4 seasons, and that's what the Celtics are going to need, especially with these two guys here. Even though they have injury history, they're not going to be relied upon to play big minutes every night. So there's going to be that flexibility that the Celtics are going to have. Danilo Gallinari, career 38% three-point shooter. That's going to be big dividends for the Celtics, who struggle to stretch the floor and shoot the ball there. Grant Williams and Peyton Pritchard, what they were able to provide over the first couple rounds of the playoffs and the NBA Finals, they were non-existent. Hopefully, Danilo Gallinari, a guy that's been a veteran, played in playoff games, similar to Al Horford in terms of just having experience. But the ability to sit there and shoot the ball like that, like he does, like he can and is capable of, I think that's going to pay dividends for the Celtics and just provide different lineups, especially. If Horford doesn't have it, you can put Danilo Gallinari in there. You can play Smart, Brown, Tatum, Gallinari, and Williams. And a guy that, especially when Brown or Tatum goes to the bench, you can plug him in and play with Brown or play with Tatum and not lose much, especially with shooting the ball. He's going to be relied upon to shoot the ball quite a bit for the Boston Celtics, and I feel like he's going to be able to step up and do that. And I feel like these are two great moves for the Boston Celtics. One, you get a guard in Brogdon who's a great playmaker, and a great guard, and a good solid guard in the league where you can rely upon him to play big minutes for us and not hurt us in any sort of way. Ability to play both sides of the ball, and especially bringing in a wing like Danilo Gallinari, who can basically help Brown and Tatum when they don't have it going. You can rely on him and stretch the floor. If Al Horford isn't 100, doesn't have it, you can tell in Al Horford games if he doesn't have it early. You can get Dino in there and spread the floor, and just have so many lineups. I think that's the big thing with the Celtics there, that they're going to have more depth. Even in the second unit with Peyton Pritchard and Grant Williams, you can put Danilo Gallinari out there with those guys. You can put Malcolm Brogdon out there with those guys. The only thing that the Celtics, I feel like they need right now is just another big man as an insurance policy, especially with Al Horford being 37 years old. Robert Williams, the injury, hopefully he's 100% by the time the season's ready to go. So you're just looking at all these things here, and I feel like the Celtics are answering the needs they have, and they just need to plug in one more guy there, a big man. They traded away Tice. They need to figure out that big man spot. They need a third big man, in my opinion. I would have loved JaVale McGee, but he went to Dallas. It's just going to be interesting, but I do like these two moves for the Boston Celtics. I feel like they addressed playmaking and shooting, two things that they desperately needed late in the playoffs. And Malcolm Brogdon and Danilo Gallinari, I feel like they're going to be great additions to the Boston Celtics.